Today I have a very special podcast guest. His name is Dr. Russel Jaffe. Dr. Jaffe has over 40 years of experience in integrative and functional medicine. He's an American board-certified clinical pathologist and clinical nutritionist. Okay, so Dr. Jaffe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to have you here today, and I know that you have expertise in so many different areas, and as I was going through your research work and your other interviews, I came across, you talk about integrative health, gut health, and, the most important diagnostics that we can do today that are predictive for our future health. And I want to dive deep into all of those things. And I know we only have an hour. So I want to start with what you think is the most important thing that we could cover in today's podcast, from a point of view from health and performance enhancement.
Right, from a standpoint of functional performance, of life quality, of being in elective protective mode, not in survival mode. And the most important thing are the 4 self-assessments, the 8 predictive biomarkers that cover epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is just a fancy word for habits of daily living and lifestyle, which is 92%, as in 92%. Of your lifetime health and quality. Now, 8% is genetic, genomic. You can blame mom and dad, but 92% is choice. 92% are habits of daily living that you can modify, often for the better. And in every study that we have done thus far,
right,
these are all community-based outcome studies, people doing their best. Starting from best standard of care, say with type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes or metabolic syndrome. How about fibromyalgia, muscle pain? In just 6 months, we added 20 plus quality years to the type 1 diabetics, to the type 2 diabetics, the fibromyalgia people we have been following, and they continue to do well. They do not relapse because we address functionally the causes, not the symptomatic consequences. We have given up or graduated from symptom reactive care, which is what most clinicians in the West offer today. And we've gone back to nature, nurture, and wholeness, physiology before pharmacology, and a respect for getting enough of the good stuff, the essential nutrients and other essential things like essential fats and essential amino acids and essential complex carbohydrates. If you get enough of the good to crowd out the bad, you can recover your digestion, what we call the microbiome, and then your metabolism, what we call the metabolome. And there is a highway, it's called the vagus nerve, that goes from the central nervous to the gut nervous system. There are at least 2, there might be 3, but at least 2. And there's a communion, there's a conversation that's continuously going on between the gut nervous system and the central nervous system through the vagus highway. The vagus is a nerve that goes throughout your body. It senses what's going on, and it gives messages from both the gut and the central nervous system to the rest of the body.
Right. That's really interesting. I'm going to circle back to this one, the vagus nerve and the gut and the brain connection. I do want to ask you at this point, you mentioned that 92% is, coming from
genetic.
Epigenetics.
It's habits of daily living. It is things you can modify by choice.
So it's 8% is what's coming from mom and dad, and the rest, 92%, is how we're living our lives. And this is...
It's how you eat and drink, think, and do. It's about what you eat, what you drink, what you think, and what you do. And that's the 92%.
That's fascinating. And this is the result of studies that you are doing?
Well, we have done confirmatory studies, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. You can go all the way back to Hippocrates, you can include Maimonides, you can include Rumi, you can include Paracelsus, you can include Sir William Osler, René Dubos, Albert Szent-Györgyi. Some of these were my direct mentors. So yes, we stand firmly on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. Hans Selye, one of my mentors, coined the term stress, both distress and eustress. A little bit of stress gets you up and going. Too much stress wears you down and wears you out. So yes, we do stand on the shoulders of those who have done the basic studies and some of the more elegant studies. What we have done is the community-based studies showing that when people make their best efforts, they dramatically reduce their risk, improve the quality of their lives, their restorative sleep, their mood, their relationships, their digestion, their ability to repair, as well as their ability to defend against foreign invaders. Being in elective protective mode is a choice. Most people are in survival mode, which means they get by. They just barely get by each day. They're not thriving, they're existing. We want people to get out of bed rested and restored with gratitude and optimism because your neurochemistry, your hormones, your digestive repair system are all working for you. They've been renewed overnight. You might even have a dream or two. You certainly sent signals to your body to identify anything that's worn out and repair it. Send other signals to your body that any abnormal cells should be identified and eliminated. These are amazing qualities that are innate to the human organism. But if you're in survival mode, you just get by. And if you're in elective protective mode, which is what I recommend, then your day is worth living and tomorrow will be better.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. And the vagus nerve and the connection to the gut and the brain that you were previously talking about, maybe for the viewers who are not so familiar with this, could you please explain what this connection is?
Well, yes, for many, many years, clinicians and researchers were taught that the way in which the brain communicates with the body is partly by sending signals out through the pituitary, which we call the master gland, and partly by sending out nerves called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, for example, it innervates your diaphragm. When you breathe, if you breathe deeply, gently, abdominally, and deeply, your diaphragm causes a gentle compression and release of your intestines. Most people underventilate. Most people move air in the large airways, which is okay, but you have to get the air down into the tiny little sacs, we call these alveoli, that allow the good oxygen in and the waste gas out. And if in most cases, people have to relearn how to breathe because they hypoventilate. The stress and other traumas of life have left them under breathing, which leads to all sorts of downstream risks. So one of the things we often do is have people breathe like a baby, breathe abdominally for 5 minutes twice a day. Just 5 minutes twice a day. It lowers your stress hormones, it improves your healthy hormones, it improves your repair hormones, it decreases your anti-repair hormones, it helps your peristalsis and your digestion, it helps all sorts of things. So breathe.
Right, right. So when I'm breathing and getting the air all the way to the alveoli where, you know, all the oxygen is taken in and all the bad stuff goes out, that really helps me to repair, right? So
Absolutely.
and then like from the brain side, when I'm breathing that way, and getting the air all the way through, what does it do to the brain and in connection to the gut and the vagus nerve?
Well, remember that the brain itself needs oxygen and it needs to get rid of waste. So how do you do that? Well, you have the brain, and then the brain is bathed in spinal fluid. The spinal fluid is made by what's called the choroid plexus, and it pulses. In healthy people, it's called the craniosacral pulse. Now, that spinal fluid is one of the many circulations of the body. When it works properly, The nerves are cleaned by other cells called dendritic cells, glial cells, astrocytes. These are the cells that when they get choked up, you get sick, because they get choked up on debris that they should be able to recycle and repair, that they cannot do because they lack critical antioxidants, mostly vitamin C and related. They lack critical minerals, magnesium and related. They lack critical cofactors like coenzyme Q10 in a micellized form, or EPA, DHA, omega-3 beneficial fats. When you have enough of the good stuff, your body repairs. When you lack enough of the good stuff, you just hunker down into survival mode, and your metabolism prays and hopes and would like to get messages of help and hope. But too often the messages are, stand by, we'll get back to you.
Right, right. So, and how do I can make sure that I get all these nutrients, and then you talked about sleep, where all the repairing happens.
Well, wait. Let's back up half a step. Let's say you're taking you're taking in a perfect diet that you can digest, assimilate, and eliminate without immune burden. Most people aren't, but let's say you are.
Yeah.
And let's say you're taking perfect supplements, but you've been living a Western lifestyle, a modern lifestyle, to the point where you have some atrophy of your digestive capacity. This is called enteropathy. It is almost epidemic in modern society. So you could be taking a perfect diet with supplements, but very little might be getting into you. And we have pioneered enhanced uptake and chaperone delivery of supplements so that the good can get in and the bad can get out. You want more of the good and less of the bad in regard to diet and supplements. You do want to know how to breathe and relax. And by the way, after 10,000 hours of active meditation and mindfulness practice, your brain changes. So make use of how plastic, how adaptive, how flexible, how changeable are your habits,
right,
and your choices and your lifestyle,
right,
so that you get more of the good and less of the bad.
Right, absolutely. I love that. And coming back to the gut health, you said like it's like a silent epidemic. Like so many people have this what you called enteropathy.
Enteropathy is atrophy of the digestive capacity, but there's maldigestion. They're not getting enough of the salivary, stomach, digestive enzymes. They're often taking medicines that impair rather than enhance the quality of their digestion.
Okay.
So they could be taking in lots of the good stuff, but assimilating, taking up, the bioavailability might be low. And that's where folks like us come in to repair over about 6 months, and then sometimes a second 6 months, because it took years, sometimes decades, for people to get to realize that they need to make changes in what they eat and drink, think, and do.
Right. So I want to hear from you what to do in the 6 months, what you suggest people to do. But I also want to know the reason why so many people have this enteropathy, this atrophy.
Okay, let's take the second question first. Why are there so many people with the problem? Because there's too much anti-nutrients, too much stress, too much toxins in the environment, too much toxic relationships, too much toxic workplace environments, too much toxic matter in total.
Okay.
And too little at the same time of the nutrient-dense, high quality. For example, in my home, the front yard is a permaculture biodynamic food forest that's 10 years old. We have 250 edible plants, from herbs like rosemary and parsley and sage and thyme to 12.5 fruit trees, from nectarines to apples, pears and Asian pears, apricots. We've tried figs, but they don't do very well here.
I love that.
We have mushroom guilds in the backyard. We have a wood-fired bread oven. And if you want to get up really early and make bread, it makes fabulous bread, but great pizza also.
Can I come over and visit you?
Sure, sure. And we have actually turned a horse barn into a guest cottage so that people can have some privacy. They have their own little space.
Wow.
It's not very big, but it's adequate for a small family. And
Love
it
that.
really was a horse barn. We turned it into an artist studio because Rebecca, the mother of my children, is a very fine sculptor artist. And therefore, it has a 4 by 16 foot skylight in the main room, a 4 by 4 skylight in the bedroom. It's got a little cherry wood perch where you can sit in the sun or think deep thoughts or just relax. And yes, we enjoy having folks come here to visit with us. And then we take them in the kitchen where they are surprised to find no plastic, nothing that needs to be disposed of, at least very little. But you find a lot of traditional ceramics unglazed. You find a lot of glass. You find traditional French cookware. You find a French press to make coffee. You find a tea cozy that makes really wonderful hibiscus tea. So yes, come visit.
I am so motivated to go now. Just
Yes,
waiting
come
for the
visit.
pandemic to end.
No, come visit. I will just interrupt for a moment. There is something called the General Services Administration. They are responsible for all buildings owned by the federal government of the United States. Every once in a while, someone asks for edible landscaping or permaculture or things like what we have here now 10 years on. And so when this request is made, the GSA people come out here to my front yard and we sit and we chat. And generally, I give them some lemongrass on the way out, maybe some rosemary, maybe some whatever else is timely. Right now, the garden is putting itself to sleep. So if you came today, there would be rosemary, there would be a few things. But you know, there's a reason for fall and winter, followed by spring, hope, and renewal.
Love that. Just absolutely love that. Yeah. So coming back to what we were discussing, the stress and all the toxic stuff that really gets to the gut health, to the point that people are not able to absorb, take in all the good stuff that they eat. So even if we're having a healthy diet, it may be that our gut is not able to process all this. So what's the solution?
Well, the solution is to wake up. So the solution is that, for example, over about 25 years, I gained 2 to 3 pounds until I was 65 pounds overweight. And I was eating a Caesar salad. And I thought, oh, well, a salad. Well, it turns out there's 1,000 calories in a Caesar salad. And given my level of activity and my phase of life, let's say I get 2,000 calories a day, and some of that is going to be a glass of wine. So that means every other calorie I have to interrogate. And here's how I do it easily. We have salads. The salads include seeds, sprouts, nuts, edible flowers, herbs. No dressing, naked salads.
Okay.
We start every meal with something wet and warm.
Yeah.
Because we want to stay hydrated. We take in the foods that we can digest, assimilate, and eliminate without immune burden, because we have a cell culture, a test of our immune response done every 6 months. And I will tell you, because I've been doing this for many years, sometimes it comes up with a reaction to something I like. And so my chief of staff asked me, am I going to follow the results of the test? And the answer is yes. I don't have to like the results. I don't have to dislike the results. The results are the results. I feel so much better when I let my body talk to me through the LRA tests that we developed and have been offering since 1983. We have over 80,000 cases in a database. We've done 25 million cell cultures. If you want to know about your immune defense and repair responses, LRA by ELISA Act is the gold standard.
Right. So tell me a little more about this test, because I'm very curious. What does this test actually measure?
This test measures your delayed allergies. So you can have what we call B cell responses, which means antibodies like IgG and IgM. You can have immune complexes, which is harmful, not helpful. You can have T cell responses, and we distinguish good from bad, helpful from harmful in an ex vivo autologous cell culture. So the cells are reacting just as they do in the body. This is a new generation of cell culture that we pioneered in 1983. We have global patents. We have a lot of novelty, but what we have is precision, accuracy, reproducibility, and most importantly, clinical outcome results to prove that if you make your best efforts, you can add life to years and years to life.
Right. I love that. So what we're essentially measuring with this test is my delayed allergy response. So this could be to any food. So this is going to screen, it's kind of going to screen all food that I eat against, how I'm reacting to it.
We happen to purify all of our materials ourselves because I'm a biochemist. So we have the largest number of foods, over 240. Then we add preservatives, which are important, then medicines and toxins, then environmental substances. We can even test you for dander, hairs, and feathers, any of which could, for you as an individual, be a cause of immune burden that would impair your repair and make you more likely to have everything from self-attacking autoimmune disease and chronic inflammation, which is repair deficit, to cardiovascular catastrophes and cancer.
If someone wants to do this test and they're like, for example, I'm in Germany now, if I would want to do this test, could I send you a sample of my blood?
Yes. We have to send you the kit because there's some special nature to the preservative and the way in which the sample comes. But as long as we can get a sample from you to us in 24 hours, and in all parts of Europe, in Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, if you're living in Tibet, probably we won't get the specimen in time. If you're in Dharamsala, where my daughter's godfather, the Dalai Lama, lives, yes, we can actually get a specimen from there to Delhi and from Delhi to us in time. So we have 3 days. Trust me, dear, I do. We have 3 days to do the cell culture.
Yeah.
Very often, it's day 2 or 3 before we get the specimen, but we've been doing this for decades. We are the most precise, reproducible, and we've published at the American Society for Investigative Pathology less than 3% variance on a cell culture. Less than 3% variance if you're just measuring blood sugar or blood sodium, that's really good. To do that on a cell culture is completely unprecedented. And to be able to do hundreds and hundreds of cell cultures on 1 ounce of blood, not very much, 1 ounce of blood, that's the amount your body makes in an hour. If we get the specimen, we do a positive and negative control to make sure the specimen is able to react and not pre-activated. And then we can measure hundreds of cell cultures for only a few dollars each. When we started, if you wanted to do one substance, let's say gluten, one food, it would be $300 in 3 weeks. Now we can do specimens for $3 each in batches. And we are the standard because the outcome studies have validated that the statistics and the evidence, the science that we have brought together, much of it we just bring together. We didn't pioneer all of it, but we pioneered the validation of the functional self-assessments and the predictive biomarkers, interpreted to best outcome values, not to some statistical range. Because I can tell you what the best outcome value is for the 8 biomarkers. I can tell you what a healthy person will show on the 4 self-assessments. Right. The 4 self-assessments are very easy to do. They're a good place to start. The 8 biomarkers cover all of epigenetics. That's the 92% you can do something about. And we have been the leader in showing that people actually make these changes when you give them information and inspiration, and yet explain to them that it's their effort or perspiration that really makes the difference.
Right, right. So what is the 4 self-assessment? So I didn't get that part quite.
4 self-assessments are, number 1, what is your urine acid status after rest? pH should be 6.5 to 7.5. Are you hydrated? I just tested and proved that I'm hydrated. Number 2. Number 3, your digestive transit time from eating to elimination should be 12 to 18 hours. Most people are 3 days to a week.
Okay.
So you could be regular, but what's coming out today might have come in last week. That's not good.
Right,
When I
right.
have beets overnight, I should see red in the commode in the morning. Now, when I see red in the commode in the morning, my first thought is never beets. So we use charcoal. We don't use beets, and we certainly don't use corn.
Okay, no coins.
And the fourth of the self-assessments is a C cleanse. How much antioxidant ascorbate do you need to overcome the anti-nutrient oxidative burden you're under, the free radical burst that can kill you? So we developed the C cleanse. We offer it along with the 3 other self-assessments. They are inexpensive, easily done, and they lead to a decision to follow the epigenetic 8 predictive biomarkers interpreted to their best outcome goal values.
Okay, okay. Right. So in the fourth one, you see, you measure the amount, like the ratio to antioxidants and free radicals
You
in the
can
blood?
do that, dear. It'll cost you thousands of dollars and confuse you. No, what I said is you take graded amounts of nature's ascorbate, fully buffered, fully reduced L-ascorbate every 15 minutes until you cleanse. The cleanse means that fluid and toxins are being pumped into the rectum and evacuated from your body. It's called a C cleanse. We have it available online on YouTube. It's free. You can download it. Follow the instructions. Please do not vary until you have practiced what we advise really, really well. And by the way, the Dalai Lama says this too. Before you break the rules, practice them for a long time.
Okay, okay. That's very fascinating. I love that. So tell me about gut microbiome, because I've seen your lectures and you're very specific about the you emphasize the importance of the diversity of the gut bacteria, and also in relation to the brain. I would love to hear that from you.
Well, of course, it's prebiotics, probiotics, and symbiotics. I learned this from Dennis Burkitt and others. 40 to 100 grams of fiber between diet and supplements unprocessed a day. You must have complex carbs, as in you must have complex carbs if you want to live well and healthy, because the complex carbs begin to rebuild or sustain or enhance the bugs. The digestive organisms, that's the probiotics, 40 to 100 billion probiotic organisms a day. Notice how easy it is to remember that. 40 to 100 grams of fiber, 40 to 100 billion bugs a day. And it should be a mixed set of acidophilus, bifidus, and thermophilus organisms, which we have been doing in maximum growth phase, which is maximum potency, not the maximum number of dead particles. Most probiotics are dead, and dead organisms do not help you. Live organisms do. You want to have 40 to 100 grams of fiber, 40 to 100 billion healthy bugs a day from fermented foods and supplements. And then you want recycled glutamine, that's the symbiotic, to go along with the prebiotics and the probiotics to repair the intestinal linings using recycled glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid. It's an alkaline amino acid. It's an essential amino acid. When you recycle it with PAC, only with PAC, don't try to fool Mother Nature. That's a bad thing to do. But if you recycle the glutamine, you never build up glutamate as a problem, and you do get the benefit of repairing the digestive tract. That's reversing the atrophy and enteropathy.
Okay, okay. So if I'm doing those things, if I start doing those things, and if I keep doing them for, say, 6 months, what would be the, how will I know that I don't have this enteropathy anymore? How would I measure it?
Well, one way you would measure is by coming back and doing the 4 self-assessments: the digestive transit time, the hydration status, the C cleanse, and the pH after rest. In fact, you've probably been measuring the pH on a daily basis, because most people have metabolic syndrome, metabolic acidosis. What that really means in practice is too little of the good magnesium and other hard to get in and retain minerals that are necessary to energize, to repair, to activate your cells. So you probably have heard of ATP, but you need 1 molecule of magnesium for every molecule of ATP to make it work. You need enough magnesium to keep an alkaline, what's called proton gradient, so that the mitochondria can give the cell the ATP with a proton, that's acid, and then the cell has to be able to kick the acid out, otherwise the cell shuts down. When you're in survival mode, your battery is shut down. You're in survival mode. You're converting sugar into lactate and pyruvate. You don't have much exercise tolerance. Your lactate and pyruvate build up. You're not detoxifying because the battery detoxifies as well as energizes. Ascorbate can save you. Ascorbate based on the C-cleanse can save you. Ascorbate is the only molecule in nature and in biology that can restore the battery with the 0.5 millivolt gap at the cytochrome 4. For those who are really technical, they just got what I said. What I mean is you can recharge the battery using nature, nurture, and wholeness, using the 4 self-assessments and the 8 predictive biomarkers, following our guidance, because we want you to be at best outcome values, not at some statistical range.
Right, right. Just to recap that, so the first one was the pH in urine after rest, if I'm correct?
Because overnight your body takes the wastes and puts them in the urine, sweat, and stool. Let's just talk about the urine for the moment. If the urine is between 6.5 and 7.5 after 6 or more hours of rest, you're fine. You need 2 doses a day. That is 220 milligrams of magnesium plus a teaspoon of choline citrate twice a day, and you'll stay in the 6.5 to 7.5 range. For every half pH unit you're below that, you need another dose of the magnesium choline citrate combination. So let's say you're 5.5. Well, that's 2 half units. You need 4 doses a day. Let's say you're 5. You need a pH of 5, which is very common. That means you're hundreds, maybe thousands of milliequivalents deficient. You are cruising for a bruising in regard to heart and cardiovascular risks, cancer risks, digestive risks are all very high. So correct that. The number of doses of magnesium and choline citrate is based on the pH after rest, with a half unit being 1 more dose, starting with 2 and ending with 3, 4, 5, depending on how acid you are.
Okay, so what's the optimal pH after rest in urine?
6.5 to 7.5, 6.5 to 7.5, 6.5 to 7.5 is the healthy range after rest. Nothing different, 6.5 to 7.5. And I'll say that again, 6.5 to 7.5.
Right, perfect. So I love that. I finally understood the concept of that one. So I want to know from you, because you have given lecture. I have heard one of your lectures was on autism and brain health, and also, degenerative brain conditions. And you kind of gave a very different perspective on how these diseases are related, and I would love to hear, that side of your work.
Well, actually, I would suggest reading anything that Dr. Martha Herbert from Harvard has written on the subject. Look at the article that Dr. Norman Schwartz and I published a few years ago in Autism One. It's a complex metabolic profile differentiating the 6 subtypes of neurodevelopmental challenges, autism spectrum disorder, and Down syndrome, which are distressingly interrelated. And so, in essence, what we say over and again is get the bad stuff out and the good stuff in. And what do I say about these conditions that are so catastrophic? Get the bad stuff out and the good stuff in and see what's left. And in the meantime, go to Project Hope, go to Martha Herbert. She has a website, but look up Martha Herbert. Anything she's written, anything she has communicated, I would say is the state of the art, and we learn from her.
Right. Okay, we'll definitely check that out. Just one more question on that. So is these autism spectrum diseases and also other degenerative brain health conditions are also so directly related to gut health?
Well, everything's related to everything. So the microbiome and the metabolome are intimately related through the vagus highway. The answer is yes.
Okay, so this is something I find extremely fascinating. So I would really like you to, because I don't want to miss up the chance, pass the chance of having you explain this to me. So the microbiome and the vagus highway.
Microbiome used to be called digestion. They just pay you more today if you say microbiome than digestion. The metabolome used to be called metabolism, but they pay you more today to say microbiome and metabolome. They are in communion with each other using the vagus highway. It's bidirectional. That's only in the last few years confirmed. Intuitive and wisdom traditions knew that for millennia, but yes, the scientists confirmed it just a few years ago. And that's why I keep pointing out that it's bidirectional, not unidirectional. So it is from the body to the brain, from the brain to the body. That's the vagus highway. The metabolome is your metabolism. How much good stuff and how much bad stuff? Your digestion, your microbiome. How many good do you have in the digestive category? How many bad do you have? If the good crowds out the bad, you're fine. If the good repairs, you're fine. If you lack the good in either digestion or metabolism, you're cruising for a bruising.
Right, right. So does that mean also our mood and level of mental stress and our resilience to stress, these are also directly related to our gut microbiome?
Well, that's what every researcher from Hans Selye to Walter B. Cannon to Rene Dubos and I could go on and on because there are many people whose shoulders I stand on, but the answer to your question is yes. More bad, less good is bad. More good, less bad is better.
Okay. Okay. So right. So I have heard one of your lectures in which you talk about glutathione and how important glutathione is in order to detox the body. Could you please explain that?
Well, glutathione has to be made inside of cells. You cannot take glutathione as a supplement. You cannot even take it intravenously. It doesn't get into cells. There's a reason why the body excludes peptides. And by the way, glutathione in its reduced form is a that is 3 amino acid peptide. It is usually found in an oxidized 6 amino acid sequence. And there is a reason, a very profound reason. It would really confuse the body because di and tripeptides have a language. So there's a reason why you have to make glutathione inside the cell. Alton Meister, who taught me about this in the when did he teach me? In the 1980s. Alton Meister showed if you want to raise glutathione, the only way to do it is by having enough ascorbate. Ascorbate is the maternal antioxidant that raises glutathione, helps synthesize glutathione. If you want glutathione in your cells, you need ascorbate, then you need glutamine. Remember, we have recycled glutamine. You need cysteine, that's a sulfur amino acid. It smells like sulfur. And you need glycine, that's a simple amino acid. But that simple amino acid glycine can be used up detoxifying to create hippurates. It can be used up in your neurochemistry. And so if you lack any of the building blocks, you can't build the result. So glutathione has to be made inside cells. I know a lot of people take glutathione. I don't know why. It doesn't get into cells. It doesn't help. If you want to build glutathione, you have to take the building blocks and ascorbate that is fully buffered, fully reduced, L-ascorbate produced under a nitrogen blanket so that the ascorbate isn't damaged before you get it. Now, most of the vitamin C that you buy off the shelf is done in air. Air has oxygen. Oxygen damages vitamin C. Right. Why? Why would you do that? Well, it's so cheap to make. So 90% of what you buy off the shelf is damaged and should not be used. If you have a source that is fully buffered, fully reduced L-ascorbate, treasure it and use it.
Okay, okay. So two things. One is glutathione. So the glutathione has to be made inside the cells. So we can't, when we take it from outside, it doesn't get inside cells. Makes sense. So we need to take all the building blocks of glutathione. And for the people who don't come directly from a medical or biochemistry background, maybe you could explain to us,
all
like,
you have to do is eat the alkaline way, which we have in a book called The Joy of Living the Alkaline Way that you can download for free. All you have to do is follow the alkaline way. If you follow the alkaline way, you'll get plenty of the essentials, plenty of the essential fiber, plenty of the essential amino acids that are alkaline, plenty of the essential fats. All you have to do is follow the alkaline way. Please understand, you do not have to become a chemist, a biochemist, a molecular biologist, and or a physicist.
Okay.
And by the way, I am a biochemist, but I'm not a physicist.
Okay.
I took a physics class once, and the professor came to me and he said, "You're trying." I said, "Am I trying you?" I mean, I know. He said, "Why don't you drop out?" I said, "No, I'm going to persevere." So I'm not a physicist. Don't pretend to be.
Okay.
Richard Feynman was a friend. Murray Gell-Mann, friend. David Bohm, friend. So I hang out with physicists, but they're above my pay grade.
Okay, got it. So this is something that I'm still, something that I still have at the back of my mind. For the people who don't really, don't have a background in this, can you please explain to us why is it important to have glutathione, what it does? Just to, just the basics.
So glutathione, when it is connected to vitamin C, takes an energy unit called an electron and transfers it into the battery called the mitochondria. When glutathione is damaged, oxidized, or reduced, the whole cell goes into survival mode. In survival mode, you will survive. You will feel terrible. You will be fatigable and irritable. Your moods won't be good. Your sleep won't be restorative. You will be chronically ill, and you probably will be seeing many doctors. We do not recommend that. We recommend the opposite.
Okay. So glutathione, is something we cannot take from the outside, but the cell.
It's a shuttle. If you know what a shuttle is, it brings something from somewhere to somewhere else, but it's important. That's what it is. It shuttles the electron, which is the unit of power of the cell. And if you want to get into what frequency each electron is, I can go there, dear, but I don't think that'll help.
Okay, all right. We're gonna stop that question right there and move on to the next topic. I know that you went on from working at the in the clinic side of pathology and molecular biology. You were a clinical chemist. You did your residency there, and then you pursued your passion and you founded these companies, and you went into innovation and research. And what's the personal story of going that direction? And I would love to know that side.
Well, I came as a skeptic. I went to debunk Qingwu, who was an acupuncturist, traditional Chinese medicine Taoist priest in Washington, D.C., and I did a 7-year apprentice with him. After my apprenticeship with him, I taught the first course in America called Oriental Medical Strategies in Western Medical Practice that qualified medical doctors for licensure in medical acupuncture in New York and California. Then I went on to debunk Ramamurti Mishra, who wrote the textbook of yoga psychology, commentary on Patanjali sutras, and self-awareness, self-knowledge. I became his student, and I became his doctor. Then I went to debunk a Cambodian Buddhist monk named Bhante Dharmawara, who had decoded a color healing system that Gautama Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. It was practiced for 500 years, lost for 2 millennia, that's 2,000 years, and this man, Bhante Dharmawara, decoded it. So I became his student, and I became his doctor. Along the way, Rebecca and I had 2 children who are now young adults and thriving. And we did unusual things. For example, we had a family bed. For example, the children were allowed to nurse until they were ready to wean. My daughter was premature. My son was a precipitous delivery. For various reasons, I am the doctor who delivered both of my children. What a privilege that was. Not chosen, but, if you will, the universe required. So I went as a skeptic. I became a student. I found my ignorance. I am reasonably cross-trained. You're in Germany. What part? Are you in Berlin? Are you in Bavaria? Where are you?
In Bavaria, in Munich. Munich, Bavaria.
In Munich.
Right.
If you take the train from Munich to Lake Tegernsee,
Yes.
it's about a half an hour.
Right.
If you leave the Tegernsee station and you go to the gentle side, you get to a little town called Rotach again.
Okay. The name rings a bell, but I don't remember the place.
If you haven't been, please go. My friends Norbert and Gabriella live there. They were part of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation.
Right.
And they introduced me to their friends, Mikhail Gorbachev,
Okay.
Angela Merkel.
Okay.
I'll bet you've heard those names.
I have. Right.
Very interesting small town, Rotach.
Okay.
But it's a wonderful place to live. And by the way, you can go cross-country skiing and get to Austria or Switzerland if you want to.
Right, right.
So Munich, wonderful place.
Do you often come to Munich?
I used to come to the Coaster. The Coaster is where a doctor named Armin Heufelder. He's a preventive medicine specialist. I think the clinic is still there. He has his own laboratory. He trained at Mayo Clinic in the United States. He came back to Munich. Wonderful physician, mentored by an even more wonderful physician, his wife an ophthalmologist. They happen now to live in Rotach. So yes, I used to get to Frankfurt and Munich regularly. Today, because of travel and what have you, it's a little bit different, but I am looking forward to coming back when it's safe to do that.
Right, right. We all hope that's sooner than later. Right. Yeah, so love that. I think definitely the stuff that we were able to cover in this within the short time today is absolutely fascinating. But given the amount of knowledge that you bring, I think it calls for another podcast episode, which I would definitely.
Oh, sure. No, I'd be delighted to do that. But in the meantime, there's drrusseljaffe.com. There's also Dr. Russel Jaffe as a YouTube channel. There's PERQ, PERQUE.com. There's Eliza Act, ELISAACT.com. There's healthstudiescollegium.org.
I will put all that in descriptions.
That's enough. And if you would be kind enough when you make this available to your community, we'll provide you links. Casey or Justin or one of my people will provide links because we want people to be interested enough to take a step.
Yeah.
A step towards being healthier, a step towards being more prudent about the phase of your life. I understand if you're a 20-something and young and immortal, that life is different than if you're at my age where every breath is actually very precious. I've had near-death experiences. I took my father through a stroke and completely helped him recover. Same thing with Bhante, the monk. And so almost anywhere in health or ill health that a person is, people like me who are really cross-trained will have insights about causes, not consequences, and we will start with physiology before pharmacology.
Right. Wow, I love that. I'm just so fascinated by everything you talked about that I forget my questions. Okay.
That's good. That's okay. When you remember it, we can get to it. I've had a lovely time conversing with you and with your audience.
Any parting advice you want to give the audience, like just one big advice that you have for everyone?
I guess my one piece of advice is keep breathing, because most people hold their breath when they're under stress and that makes it worse. If there's a hurricane going on, stay at the eye of the storm and keep breathing.
Okay, love that. Love that. Dr. Jaffe, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and explaining all these fascinating things to us. We're going to put all the links in the description box. And thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.